Hello, I'm John Richards from Paladin Cloud, and today we're talking about the Center for Internet Security's Microsoft Azure Foundations benchmark. We're looking at recommendation 3.7, ensure that public access level is disabled for storage accounts with blob containers. This recommendation covers Azure's storage accounts. CIS describes this recommendation as disallowing public access for a storage account overrides the public access settings for individual containers in that storage account. Blocking public access at the account level is what we're trying to do. But why do we want to do that? So the CIS rationale is the default configuration for a storage account permits a user with appropriate permissions to configure public access to containers and blobs in a storage account. It is recommended not to provide anonymous access to blob containers until and unless it is strongly desired. A shared access signature token or Azure Active Directory RBAC should be used for providing controlled and timed access to blob containers. If no anonymous access is needed for any container in the storage account, it's recommended to set Allow Blob Public Access false at the account level, which forbids any container to accept anonymous access in the future. Putting sensitive data on a publicly accessible storage is a huge no-no. Don't do it. There are valid reasons for using public storage, but those reasons need to be clearly defined and have specific policy exemptions for why they are public. Thankfully, by default, public access is blocked. Still, a user with sufficient privileges can change that, so it's recommended to periodically audit for this to be sure that data isn't accidentally accessible to the public. We have a policy within Paladin Cloud called Deny Public Access to Storage Account that monitors the configuration settings for this CIS recommendation. Paladin Cloud is an open source security as code policy engine that monitors your cloud environments for misconfigurations. Deny public access to storage account is a security policy that checks Azure's account storage to verify they don't allow public access. Because of the huge risk that exposing sensitive data to the public poses, this is a critical issue, our highest severity ranking. Now that we understand the risk here, how can we check this? Let's look at a few ways. First, we're going to do it via the Azure portal. So we're going to navigate to the portal. We're going to go to the storage accounts section. To audit this remediation, we'll take a look at the network section. Here inside networking, we can see the status of public network access. Since we haven't disabled it, we don't comply with the CIS recommendation. Let's check that same status via the command line. Now, Azure offers Azure Cloud Shell for running CLI commands right from the browser. So we'll run a command to list the status of public network access for our storage account. We need to pass in our storage account name and our resource group. We want this to say disabled. A value of enabled or null means we are allowing public access. Let's look at the steps needed to fix this. To do so, we can return to our storage account's network settings and set public network access to disabled. Then we save our changes. If you use infrastructure as code, you may have built your storage accounts using Terraform, Bicep, or ARM. In that case, you'll want to modify the code so the problem isn't replicated on future deployments. One way to avoid misconfigurations is to use a platform like Paladin Cloud to automate detection. Paladin Cloud runs policies across assets. Those assets can be scoped by custom asset groups based on things like subscription or cloud provider. I'll scope this session to just assets on Azure. The Paladin Cloud dashboard shows us metrics on severity, category, and quantity of policy violations. Earlier, we learned that deny public access to storage account is a critical priority, so it would be represented here. Let's search for the policy. Here we see a list of assets in violation of this policy. By clicking on a specific violation, we see more details. There's a link to the policy, and there we can find documentation on how to remediate it. We can also go to the specific asset and see what other policy violations it has and further details. If this interests you, please check out the free open source repository for Paladin Cloud on GitHub and give us a star. Also, let us know if you have any questions or feedback. Thank you so much for watching.